Frank Mir, thank you very much for chatting to us here at the Sportsman. And first of all, would you like to tell us why we're here at the launch of the Top Team gym in Manchester?
Yeah, this is Manchester's top team. The school ran by my coach, Carl Prince, and so and really a phenomenal place to train. Hell, I just flew over from the U.S. to be here for a month to get training with Carl because he was out with me for a couple of months back before the last fight, and we've been traveling back and forth to train with each other.
So first thing I'd like to ask, Frank, is how you're feeling. It's about 4 months now since your win over Roy Nelson. How are you physically?
I feel very good. As soon as the fight was over with, I actually went and did some stem cell with BioAccelerator down in Colombia, and did phenomenal, man. I can't believe how much better my body feels. I was struggling to lift weights for the last couple of years to the point to where I don't even want to because it just hurts so bad. I would save whatever I could just for fight training. And you can see in my physique, I became softer and less mobile as I was getting older. And so this helped erase that. So now, I lift weights now 6 days a week. In fact, if my traveling schedule makes it to where I can't do my 2 workouts a day, where I do a fight workout at night and a weight training workout in the morning, I choose weights, just because of the rehab it's done to my body, how I feel strength-wise and mobility. And it creates more of a percentage of an increase in my ability than it does even learning to sharpen up some of my technique.
Tell me more about the stem cell therapy. It sounds fascinating.
That was crazy. Yeah, anybody who's interested, you can go on bioaccelerator.com and click on there and look through it. And as far as what you're buying is just health, it's priceless. I would have sold my house if I couldn't afford it otherwise, just to get there. In fact, I'm going to go back after my next fight. Every time I fight, I just plan on going out there. And my daughter had an ankle injury about a year ago, and I'm going to bring her to have her ankle looked at. The physicians they have there were phenomenal as far as diagnosing exactly what was wrong. There were certain injuries that I had that I was like, well, this hurts. And I'm like, well, actually the problem is this. And I'm sitting there shaking my head going, man, I'm in America. I thought I had the best healthcare access to, and here I'm having some doctor in Colombia go, no, it's actually, this is the problem. I'm like, really? Watch, we'll show you. Sure enough, after they did procedures to fix things, and the next day I'm walking around, I'm like, holy hell, that was the problem. Wow, I can see improvement now. So it was really a phenomenal experience.
What's it like down in Medellin? Because if you say to anybody, the first thing they'll think of when they say Colombia is probably Narcos and the Netflix series. What's it like?
Complete opposite. It's actually safer there than it is in most of the states in the U.S. It's beautiful. The people were great. The food was good. Down in the middle of the city where I was at was very modern and nice. I mean, the hotel where Jay is locked into, where you're doing the stem cell bioaccelerators, is one of the towers there. It's a beautiful mall, high end. I mean, really, I went there the first time just as ignorant as most people are. Oh man, Medellin's dangerous. And even Googling it, it says, no, it's not that dangerous. I'm like, I went there, I'm like, wow, I have no problem bringing my wife and children here. And that's usually a pretty quick testament. If you see me show up with my wife and kids, it means I feel very comfortable.
So to move towards the MMA, your contract with Bellator runs out very shortly. Do you think we'll see another fight before your contract runs out?
Well, the contract is done April 1st, so I don't know if I'm going to really get a fight in the next 3 weeks. But hopefully they give me an offer and I can, fulfill my contract. I don't want to be I don't want to have a reputation for not fulfilling contracts. So on my end, I'm doing everything I can to be there to help fulfill it. It's up to them. But, they have a lot of shows and, they have a hard workload, So, hopefully they can, be able to figure it out so that I can fulfill that. And then, they really haven't talked to me about whether I want to extend or not. So I don't even know how they feel about that, whether we're going to continue on or not together. I got to wait till I actually get a conversation with somebody.
You've had a career now that spanned 2 decades. At this point in your career, who would your dream opponent be, and would that potentially be back in the UFC?
No, my dream opponent's always myself. Some people, I think they need a distraction from what scares them most, which is themselves. So they aim at people, and it gives you something to aim at. But I know that the real person you're always battling in every competition is yourself. That's what you're really trying to improve upon and what you're trying to defeat. And so I just need an opponent in front of me that pushes back. Obviously going out there and just taking care of some slug that just got off a bar stool, that's not going to test you. I want an opponent that's going to test me, and that's all I've ever really required or wanted in who I see across the cage.
So is it the equation in the cage that keeps you coming back for more, even now?
Yeah, just because I've never fought perfectly. Every time I go out there and train, same reasons I fight now, the why I fought when I first got into MMA. It's a test. All these guys, you go to the gym, you test yourself. I think a lot of guys can understand that. I mean, look how big the CrossFit Games are. Why? Well, because you want to test yourself. You're in there, you're training, you're staying fit. These are things that are very positive identities in life. But sometimes just training for the sake of training can get boring. And so to have something to goal at, and then you also have a real test of yourself. Being comfortable, you don't find out who you are psychologically. When you're uncomfortable, when you're stressed out, when pressure is put upon you is when you find out what you're made out of. Anybody could sit there on a couch and go, oh yeah, well I would do this. No, you wouldn't, because you're here on a couch. That's why. You're a critic than a spectator. I feel bad for those type of people because they never get to find out who they are. They're gonna, when they're on their deathbed, they're gonna hate themselves. They never adventured, never took risks, never took chances. Stayed safe. I'm constantly taking risks and pushing to find out who I am.
You've had a fascinating career so far. One point in it I'd like to touch on was when you suffered the motorcycle crash and a serious injury. You were 24 at the time, weren't you, when that happened? What was it like to be a 24-year-old heavyweight champion in the world and potentially told that you might never fight again?
Oh, mentally it broke me. The only thing that made me survive is that I had children that I wanted to be able to respect me and look up to me, and I had a wife that constantly reminded me of that and pushing me in the right direction. I mean, I mentally broke. It was people around me, my wife specifically, that really, got a hold of me and was like, no, I'm not, you can give up, I'm not giving up. And that sucks. It sucks when you want to quit and there's somebody who loves you and you love them and they're holding on and I can't leave them with the bag, It's almost like, oh, well, I guess if we're going down with a ship and you're not going to swim away, all right, well, I'm going to go down with you. And eventually we treaded enough water that we got the ship back on course.
Was there a moment where you believed the doctors, or did you always think that you might get back into the ring?
I honestly believed them. Oh, yeah, no, I broke. When I say that in every sense of the word, I broke. I quit mentally.
And so was it your wife that kept you going and got you back into the ring?
Yeah, she was trying to use smart love. She, booked me fights when I wasn't ready. I always talk about it in my speeches. Hernan Cortez was an explorer. And when he went down to explore, South America, he found the Aztec Empire. His men wanted to leave. And then, what he did was first he drilled some holes in the boat, had his men do that so the boats would sink. Well, the boats started sinking, but they sank too fast. So his other men were very, veteran sailors go, that's not how that worm works. So they were going to execute him and drive back to, or sail back to their homeland, and he burnt all the boats. So now he told them, well, there's only one way to go now, guys, and that's forward. We're going to go through the heart of the Aztec Empire. We're going to come back as kings. And that's what they did. They had no choice. There was no retreat. No surrender, no retreat. And that was what my wife did for me. She made it to a situation where I couldn't retreat.
You did, of course, get back into the cage. Does that mean then that you were getting back in there not fully fit?
100%, yeah. Yeah, my first couple of fights back, that was a shell of what I was to become and what I was. It wasn't probably until the Anthony Hardunk fight that I was feeling back. And that was when, now Dana White burnt the ships for me. He told me that if you don't win convincingly, you're done. And that's why afterwards you see the pan to my wife, because she at that point knew that was a very pivotal moment for me, that my martial arts was my identity. And because she saw what it looked like as it got taken away from me by the car accident, she saw the depths of depravity that I was sinking into through drugs and alcohol, that she knew that if I got that completely taken away from me by being kicked out of the UFC and possibly not fighting anymore, she was afraid of what I would become. And so that win enabled me to stay in the UFC and become the martial artist because that was my job. And so that was what saved me.
So the fight you mentioned there, that was your defining moment. Was there a lot of pressure on that fight for you personally coming into it? For the ring walk, did you feel a potential pressure, or were you quite relaxed?
No, yeah, it was good though, because that was that moment where there was so much pressure the night before. After the weigh-in, we're sitting there eating. My wife's on the verge of tears. She's ready to cry. My chest felt so much weight, so much pressure. I felt nauseous. I just wanted to escape. I just wanted to disappear, not exist anymore. It just felt like I couldn't have a complete beat of my heart. Something had its hand around it. And it was just tight and distressed. And I just sat there and I just looked. I'm like, wow, lack of a better word, fuck it. You know what I mean? I'm going to go out there and just do my best. I'm going to fight until I die and just see what happens, you know? And hopefully I either come through by succeeding or I pass away and don't have to deal with the outcome.
And to achieve it and get that win, it must have been some feeling. Was it a highlight of your career?
Not the only highlight, but definitely a big one. That was definitely, if you're watching a movie and it looks like the hero's about to be down and out and the music changes and all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, you know, everybody's walking out, he's done, and then it turns around. That was the turning around moment for me. And
when you were back, that opened the door to potentially the two fights that you're best known for against Brock Lesnar. What was that, particularly the opening fight, the first fight between you, what was that like facing a WWE superstar? Did you feel, was there a feeling that you were defending the MMA's honor in a sense?
No, because I looked at him because I knew him as a college wrestler from Minnesota before he was in pro wrestling. He was the college wrestler that got into pro wrestling. But a lot of people I didn't understand thought of him as the pro wrestler that's getting into MMA. I'm like, oh. And honestly, I didn't put that kind of pressure on myself until, and I wish I could, to this day, I could remember who said it to me. But I was in the back, you know, offices dealing with interviews at the MGM, or was it Mandalay? I forgot where we fought, one of those two. And as I'm walking out, one of the other fighters put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, all right, man, now remember, you're representing us. This is us versus pro wrestling. I was like, oh, okay. And as I took a couple more steps, I'm like, no, he's a really good amateur wrestler. This isn't a, he's not a pro, I mean, he's a pro wrestler, but he's not just, he wasn't a fake wrestler his whole career. This guy actually was an amateur, high-level collegiate wrestler that, had he not probably gone into pro wrestling, would have gone into the more international Olympic wrestling. No, but then when I realized that was scenario, that added pressure. So I was like, oh man, everybody else is seeing it this way, huh? Well, that sucks. It'd be like fighting Cowboy Cerrone, and now that he's done a movie, someone goes to another fighter, so what does it feel like that you're fighting an actor? You're like, whoa, buddy, no, this is a fighter that just acted, you know?
The score stands at 1 apiece. Is there a feeling of unfinished business there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, money talks, especially for everybody, right? And so if both of us can look good and be healthy and strong, and it causes intrigue, why not?
Now, that fight is sort of regarded as one of the first times that the UFC went stratospheric. There's another name in the UFC, Conor McGregor. What has he done for the sport?
Oh, he's done a lot of great things. One, I mean, more eyes on the sports, more people paying attention to it. I think he's given a lot of credibility to a lot of the European fighters, I was just in Ireland 2 weeks ago and I got to see, and a lot of that's a testament to him that gyms now can open up because, if people aren't paying to train, then there's no gym to train at, And so, he's also pushed the fighters' pay up, because people pay attention to what he's doing. They go, wait a minute, he's good for all of us, So that's why when some of the fighters, and look, I'm an old man now, especially when it comes to fighting years. So I guess I don't take things as personally as some of the young guys do. They sit there and go, oh, the way he disrespects his fighters, he says this, he says that. I'm like, guys, thicken up your skin a little bit. Realize at the end of the day, you get to do what you love. And because of him, he pushed the bar up. And everybody kind of went up a little bit with him. Everybody's making a little bit more money, or a lot more money, because of Conor McGregor. So, hell, it's a red penny night for all of us when he fights.
Now, I know he has a fight coming up in July, but I suppose the fight everybody wants to see is the rematch against Khabib. Do you think that will happen, and how do you think he would fare if it did happen?
I think he did a much better job than I even would give him credit to. But Khabib is just the complete opposite, and that's the antidote to his style. He's one of the hardest punchers pound for pound in our sport. Very explosive, straight left hand. And all his strikes are explosive, but he really has that pinpoint straight left hand. He always has a chance against anybody. I mean, hell, the guy has a chance against heavyweights, But stylistically, it's much easier to grab someone's legs and take them down than it is to land that straight left hand on somebody. It's difficult. And the payoff of getting someone down and wearing them out, I mean, that's why Khabib is undefeated. If you look at all our champions, besides, like Israel and maybe Volkov, everybody has, and Volkov I consider a grappler too. He was a rugby player, so, it really is, if you look at that aspect of our sport, being the wrestler type, the John Jones, Daniel Cormier, I mean, if you think about it, Rashad Evans is the prototype of one of the most perfect fighters. Great hands, great takedowns. And Khabib fits that prototype. Great hands, great takedown. I mean, he dropped Conor with an overhand right. You know, he's not the most technical stand-up fighter, but he doesn't need to be. He just needs to stand there long enough that he gets close to you. That if you think about hitting him back, now he takes your legs, and then if he gets on top of you, you know, obviously, world-renowned ground and pound and just viciousness and cardio. I think it's always going to be a hard fight for Conor. You know, it is stylistically. You know, I think that, you know, him, Ferguson, and Khabib, Conor could all fight each other, and you have 3 different outcomes with each fighter because the styles make fights.